For 6 months, Eric trained enemy warriors. 6 months of teaching them everything he knew, every formation, every counter tactic, every weakness in northern fighting styles. He told himself it was survival, told himself he was protecting his daughter, told himself he had no choice. But every night, he imagined the moment his clan would come, the rescue party, his brothers in arms, fighting their way to free him. And he knew with absolute certainty that when they came, they'd face warriors he'd trained. Warriors who knew northern tactics because he'd taught them. Warriors who could counter every move because he'd explained the counters. His rescue would become his judgment. His clan would fight their way to him using the very techniques he'd betrayed. And they'd lose men, good men, brothers, because of his teaching. The moment came on a cold morning. Horn calls, battle sounds, his clan attacking the enemy stronghold, coming to save him. Eric stood in the training yard, watched enemy warriors he'd trained forming up, using formations he'd taught, preparing counters he'd explained, watched them march out to fight his rescue party, and won. They won decisively because they knew what was coming, because Eric had taught them. When the battle ended, 12 of his clan brothers were dead, killed by warriors using techniques Eric had taught them specifically to counter northern styles. 3 hours later, a second rescue attempt succeeded. Smaller force, different tactics. They got him out, got his daughter out, brought him home, where he had to face families of the 12 dead, had to explain why their sons, husbands, fathers died in a failed rescue. Couldn't tell them the truth, that they died because he'd trained the enemy, that his teaching had killed them as surely as if he'd wielded the weapons himself. This is the story of the warrior who saved his daughter by teaching the enemy and lost everything else, his honor, his brothers, his place in the clan in the process. Because sometimes the price of love is betrayal, and the price of betrayal is living with what you've done. Northern Territories, summer 912 AD, a border region where two rival clans had fought for generations. Territory disputes, resource competition, blood feuds that nobody could quite remember the origin of, but everyone maintained. Eric Thorvaldsson was 32 years old, experienced warrior, good reputation. Not a champion, not legendary, just solid, competent, reliable. The kind of warrior every clan needed. Not the hero who won impossible battles, but the steady fighter who survived and brought others home. He had a wife, Helga, a daughter, Astrid, 8 years old. A good life, respected position in the clan. Nothing extraordinary, just normal, good. The raid happened in early spring, his clan attacking a southern settlement. Standard tactics, quick strike, take valuables, withdraw. But the southern clan had prepared. Ambush, counterattack. What should have been a clean raid turned into a desperate fight. Eric's group got separated, surrounded. They fought hard, killed several enemies, but numbers overwhelmed them. 7 men captured, including Eric, including 2 others from his immediate warband. They were taken to the southern clan's main stronghold, fortified settlement, high walls, strong defenses, deep in enemy territory. Standard prisoner treatment, locked in a holding building, given minimal food, questioned occasionally about clan defenses. Nobody answered, nobody betrayed. Eric expected ransom negotiations eventually, or prisoner exchange, or execution if negotiations failed. Standard outcomes for captured warriors. What he didn't expect was what happened 3 months later. The southern clan's war chief, a man named Halvard, 40 years old, scarred and experienced, came to the holding building, looked at the prisoners, studied them, pointed at Eric. "You, come with me." Eric followed, cautious, uncertain. Halvard led him to a training yard, open space, weapons racks, practice dummies, young warriors training. "You're experienced," Halvard said. "I've watched prisoners, seen how you move, how you assess situations. You're trained, well-trained." Eric didn't respond. "I want you to teach my warriors northern fighting techniques, tactics, formations, everything you know." "No, I thought you'd say that. So let me be clear about consequences." Halvard gestured. Guards brought out a prisoner, one of Eric's captured companions, forced him to his knees. "Refuse, and he dies. We'll kill 1 prisoner per day until you agree, or until you're the last one left. Then we'll kill you." Eric felt cold. This wasn't standard. This was calculated, brutal. "You're gonna kill us anyway. Why would I help you? Because I'm giving you a choice. Teach us, and you all live. As prisoners, yes, but alive, fed, treated reasonably well. Refuse, and you all die, slowly, painfully. I won't betray my clan." "Then watch this." Halvard nodded. The guard drew a knife, approached the kneeling prisoner. Eric wanted to look away, couldn't. Watched his companion, a man named Bjorn, 26 years old, good friend, die slowly, deliberately, while begging Eric to help him. It took 7 minutes, Eric counted. 7 minutes of watching a friend die because he wouldn't betray his clan's secrets. When it was over, Halvard said, "Tomorrow, another dies, and another, until you teach or until you're alone." Eric was taken back to the holding building. The other prisoners looked at him, asking without words, "What happened? Where's Bjorn?" Eric couldn't speak, couldn't tell them, couldn't face what he'd just watched. That night he didn't sleep, just thought, calculated. If he held out, 6 more men would die, then him, all dead, all for honor, all for refusing to betray. But what honor was there in watching brothers die when he could save them? What if he taught, but taught badly? Sabotaged from within? He could try, but Halvard seemed smart, would test, would verify, and prisoners would die for failed sabotage. No good options, only terrible ones. The next morning, before they could kill another prisoner, Eric agreed. "I'll teach, but the prisoners live, all of them, fed, treated well." "Agreed, as long as you teach effectively. How will you know if I'm teaching effectively?" Halvard smiled, cold. "We'll test everything you teach against prisoners. If your techniques work, the prisoners live. If they fail, prisoners die. So teach well, Eric. Teach very well. Your brothers' lives depend on it." The trap was complete, perfect, cruel. Eric couldn't sabotage without killing his own people, couldn't resist without watching them die. His only option was to betray effectively. He started teaching that day. 20 young warriors, eager, attentive, learning fast. Eric taught them basic northern formations, shield wall variations, footwork, spacing, real techniques, accurate, effective, because Halvard tested them, made prisoners attack the formations. If the defense held, good. If it broke, prisoners were punished. Eric couldn't sabotage, couldn't teach false techniques. Every lesson had to be real, had to work, or his people suffered. He taught well, hated himself for it, but taught well. Weeks passed. Eric's teaching proved valuable. The young warriors improved dramatically, started moving like northern fighters, thinking like them, anticipating like them. Halvard was pleased. "You're a good teacher, better than I expected. I'm increasing your privileges. Better food, better quarters, small freedoms." Eric didn't want privileges, wanted to stop betraying, wanted his honor back, but couldn't stop. The prisoners depended on his cooperation. Then, 2 months into his teaching, Halvard brought someone new to the training yard. A little girl, 8 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, dirty but unharmed. Astrid, his daughter. Eric's breath stopped. "You said she died in the raid. You said..." "I lied. We captured her too. Kept her separate. Kept her as insurance, in case you decided honor was more important than your companions' lives." Halvard crouched to Astrid's level, gentle, almost kind. "Hello, little one. Do you know who this man is?" Astrid looked at Eric, uncertain. 3 months had passed. She'd been separated, afraid, told her father was dead. Now seeing him alive. "Father?" Tentative, unsure. "Yes, it's your father, and he's been very helpful to us, teaching our warriors, keeping prisoners alive through his cooperation. Good man, your father." Halvard stood, looked at Eric. "Now you understand. This isn't just about warrior honor. This isn't just about your captured companions. This is about her, your daughter. If you refuse to teach, she suffers. Not dies, suffers. We'll keep her alive, but uncomfortable, scared, hurt, just enough to make you cooperate. If you teach poorly, test it, and it fails, she's punished. Not the prisoners, her. But if you teach well, effectively, give us everything you know, she's treated well, fed, safe, comfortable. And eventually, when you've taught us everything, you both go home, alive." Eric felt his world collapse. This wasn't about honor anymore, wasn't about clan loyalty, wasn't about warrior codes. This was about his daughter, his child, his responsibility to protect her. Halvard saw the moment Eric broke, saw the calculation, saw the choice being made. "Teach us well, Eric. Teach us everything, and your daughter grows up. Simple as that." Eric taught for 4 more months. Everything, every tactic, every formation, every weakness in northern fighting styles, every counter he knew, every strategy his clan had developed over generations. Taught it clearly, thoroughly, effectively. The southern warriors became dangerous, moved like northern fighters, thought like them, could predict their moves because Eric had explained the logic behind them. He was building an army specifically designed to kill his own people, and doing it well, because the alternative was Astrid's suffering. Every night she was brought to him, 1 hour together, supervised, but together. She was fed well, treated gently, no harm, as long as Eric continued teaching. "Why are you helping them?" she asked one night. "To keep you safe." "But they're bad people. They killed Bjorn. I heard the guards talking." "Yes, they're bad people." "Then why help them?" "Because they have you, and I'd do anything to keep you safe. Anything. Even bad things?" "Even bad things." She thought about that, 8 years old, trying to understand adult compromises, adult moral failures. Does that make make you bad too? Eric didn't answer. Couldn't, because he didn't know. Was he bad or just desperate? Or was there a difference? 6 months into his captivity, Eric heard horn calls one morning, battle sounds in the distance. His heart raced. His clan had to be coming to rescue him. Finally, after 6 months, they'd found the stronghold, were attacking, coming for him and the other prisoners. He should have felt relief, hope, joy, but all he felt was dread, because the warriors marching to meet that rescue party had been trained by him, knew northern tactics because he'd taught them, could counter northern formations because he'd explained them. His rescue was going to fail because of him. Halvard came to the training yard, looked at Eric. Your clan is here, attacking. My warriors are ready, thanks to you. Let me fight with them, with your warriors. I've done everything you asked. No, you watch. You see the consequences of your teaching. You understand what you've created. Eric was taken to the wall, forced to watch, forced to see the battle. The northern rescue party was strong, 50 warriors, good fighters, his brothers, using formation he'd trained with, tactics he knew intimately. They attacked the stronghold's outer defenses, expected southern fighters to respond in typical ways, expected to overpower them with northern discipline and technique. Instead, they faced warriors who matched them, who countered perfectly, who knew what was coming because Eric had explained it all. The shield wall the northern warriors formed, textbook northern formation, was broken within minutes because the southern warriors knew exactly where to apply pressure. Eric had taught them. The flanking maneuver the northern warriors attempted, standard tactic, was anticipated and countered because Eric had explained when and how northern warriors flanked. The final desperate charge, brave, disciplined, exactly what northern warriors did when pressed, was met with a perfect counter formation because Eric had taught them how to stop northern charges. The battle lasted 40 minutes. When it ended, 12 northern warriors were dead. The rest had retreated. Rescue failed. Eric had watched his brothers die, killed by techniques he'd taught, killed by knowledge he'd betrayed. He vomited, couldn't stop, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what he'd just witnessed. Halvard stood beside him. You're a very good teacher, Eric. My warriors performed excellently. Your teaching saved many of my men's lives today. You killed them. I killed them. You saved your daughter. That was the deal, and I keep my deals. 3 hours later, a second rescue party attacked. Smaller, only 20 warriors, different tactics, unexpected approaches. They didn't use standard northern formations, didn't fight like Eric had taught the southern warriors to expect. They succeeded, broke through, reached the prisoner holding area, freed Eric and the surviving prisoners, grabbed Astrid, fought their way out, lost 3 more men, but got the prisoners free. The journey home took 4 days. Eric barely spoke, just carried Astrid, protecting her, keeping her close. The other rescued prisoners knew something was wrong, knew Eric had been separated, knew he'd been gone for months, but didn't know details. One asked, "What did they do to you? Did they torture you?" "No." "Then what? You look destroyed." "I taught them. They made me teach them how we fight." Silence. The other prisoners processing that information, understanding the implications. "You trained the enemy?" "They had Astrid. Said they'd hurt her if I didn't." More silence. Uncomfortable. No one knew how to respond. Was it betrayal or survival or both? When they reached home, the greeting was complicated. Joy at recovered prisoners. Grief for dead rescuers. 15 men lost total. 12 in the first attempt, 3 in the second. The families of the dead wanted answers. Why did the first rescue fail so completely? Why were their men killed so efficiently? The clan leader, Jarl Gunnar, 50 years old, questioned the rescued prisoners. What happened in the first attack? Why did it fail? The prisoners looked at each other, then at Eric, asking silently, "Do we tell?" Eric spoke. "The enemy was prepared, well-trained, knew our tactics." "How?" "I don't know. The lie tasted like ash." But how could he tell the truth? How could he say, "They died because I taught the enemy how to kill them"? One of the other prisoners, a man named Olaf, couldn't stay silent. "They forced Eric to train their warriors for months, taught them our fighting styles." The room went cold, silent. Everyone staring at Eric, processing, understanding. Gunnar's voice was hard. "Is this true?" "Yes." "You trained our enemies? Taught them how we fight?" "They had my daughter. Said they'd hurt her if I refused. I had no choice." "You always have a choice. You chose betrayal over honor. I chose my daughter over honor. I'd make the same choice again." "Then you killed 12 men. Those deaths are yours. Your teaching. Your betrayal." "I know." The families of the dead heard this. Their grief turned to to rage turned toward Eric, the man whose teaching had killed their loved ones. The clan held a council, debated Eric's fate. Some called for exile, some for execution, some for understanding. He saved his daughter. Any father would do the same. But 12 men died because of what he taught. Their families deserved justice. He was a prisoner under duress, not responsible for forced actions. He could have refused, could have died with honor. Instead, he chose betrayal. The debate raged for days. Eric didn't defend himself, didn't argue, didn't explain beyond, "I saved my daughter. That was my choice." Gunnar made the final decision. Eric Thorvaldsson is exiled, not for being captured, not for being forced to teach, but for the 12 deaths that resulted. He may take his daughter and wife, but he may not remain in this clan. He may not fight beside us again. His weapons knowledge has been compromised. His presence here is a reminder of those who died. Exile, permanent. Leave within 3 days. Eric packed, took his family, prepared to leave the only home he'd known, the only clan he'd served, the only people he'd fought beside. The night before leaving, one of the widows, a woman named Sigrid, whose husband had died in the failed rescue, approached him. "I wanted to curse you, to hate you, to demand your death. You have that right, but I can't because I have children, 2 daughters, and if someone had captured me, had threatened my daughters, had forced me to betray to save them, I would have, just like you. Does that make it right? No, it makes it human. It makes it the impossible choice between 2 terrible options. You chose love over honor. I understand that, but my husband is still dead, and you're still the reason." "I know, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't help, but neither does hating you, so I'm just telling you, I understand, and I can't forgive, but I understand." She left. Eric felt the weight of that, understanding without forgiveness, sympathy without absolution, the acknowledgement that he'd made the only choice he could, and it was still wrong. Eric and his family left, traveled to a neutral settlement, distant, where no one knew their names, where Eric could find work that didn't involve fighting. Astrid was safe, healthy, growing up. She didn't fully understand what had happened, knew her father had done something bad to save her, knew they'd lost their home because of it. "Do you hate me?" Eric asked her one night. "For what I did? For the people who died?" "No, you saved me. I also got 12 men killed. You didn't kill them. The bad people did. I taught them how. Because they made you. That's not the same, isn't it?" She thought about that. 9 years old now, growing up with the weight of knowing her life had cost others theirs. "I don't know, but I'm glad I'm alive. Is that bad?" "No, that's normal. That's human." "Then maybe what you did was normal too. Normal human things. Not right, not wrong, just what people do when there's no good choice." Eric wished he could believe for that, wished he could accept that framework. But every night he saw the faces of the 12 dead, saw them dying using tactics he'd betrayed, saw their families grieving, and knew that Astrid being alive didn't erase those deaths, didn't make his choice right, just made it the choice he could live with, barely. Years later, Eric heard news. The Southern clan had been defeated by a coalition. Their warriors, though well-trained, hadn't been enough against overwhelming numbers. The clan was absorbed, disbanded, no longer a threat. The knowledge Eric had given them was now scattered, diluted, no longer concentrated in one enemy force. Did that matter? Did it change anything? 12 men were still dead. Their families still grieved. Eric was still exiled, still carried the weight of his teaching. But Astrid was alive, 20 years old now, married, expecting her first child, living a life she wouldn't have had if Eric had chosen honor over love. 1 life against 12. Was that a trade worth making? Eric didn't know. Still didn't know after years of thinking about it. Some questions have no answers, just choices and consequences, and the burden of living with both. He'd saved his daughter by training the enemy and lost everything else, his honor, his home, his place among warriors in the process. Was it worth it? Ask him and he'd say, "I don't know, but I'd do it again because she's alive and I'm her father, and sometimes that's all that matters." Ask the families of the 12 dead and they'd say, 12 lives for one. That's not a trade, that's a tragedy. Both answers are true, both are right, and both are wrong. That's the burden of impossible choices. There is no right answer, just the answer you can live with, and the knowledge that living with it never gets easier.